And
Oh,
not last but not least,
yes. Hello, Kelly.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon to everyone.
Good up.
yeah, good afternoon.
Yes. Thank you for joining with us.
So, and now we will listen how to nurture the slow yes in B2B sales cycles. Exactly, we are seeing also this that let's say I'm sending the email to our potential customer, and then it's starting like, oh, I don't know, da 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 da. Then it will not answer. Then I send something more, and maybe after a year, they decide that all right, maybe now it's the time. So I hope you will,
Enlighten us
yeah,
today.
how it's must be done properly.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very excited. I'm going to pull up my screen to show my thing. Hang on one
We
second.
actually, you're going to talk about business to business. We had a presentation in the morning where we saw how much troubles you can get in the B2B sector, but it's actually totally different. Compared to B2C, usually you have opt-in clients and they purchase on a regular basis. But B2B, you have like probably a lot of more like cold emailing, block listing, and stuff like that. So it's pretty exciting to see how to do it better.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, now we are ready to rock and roll. Thank you for the patience, everyone. Okay.
Yeah,
There we go. All right.
super.
So I wanted to just start off with everyone and ask this question. So, wherever you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Kelly Cline, and I'm going to be talking about how to nurture the slow yes and those slow B2B sales cycles. So, my question for everyone is, how long is your typical sales cycle if you had to guess in months? You could write 3 months, you could write however long you think from when a lead or a prospect shows up into your email funnel to when you actually close and have a paying buying customer. So I'm not seeing anyone really saying any comments. But that's okay. So we're going to move on. So you wouldn't propose on a first date. So why are we asking for demos to be booked and those kinds of things? Those are one of the red flags that I see in a nurture sequence, is that the call to action is to book a demo or to speak with someone or to even reply to the email on the very first touch point, second point, or third touch point. When we think about B2B, it's a really long, complicated journey. And when I spoke with even a client yesterday, they said, what would you say to someone who wants to see ROI in 2 months in ed tech? That's the niche that I'm in. And I always say that you want to look for signals, because the B2B industry is a skeptical, hesitant, risk-averse industry. And some sales cycles will last 3 months, which is relatively short. In my industry, it can be 18 months. It is that long because school districts are tied to funding and that kind of thing. So it's so important to remember that if you can estimate when a lead is coming in, or even follow certain leads and make an average time from when they join your email to when they actually become a buying customer, you can then start to reverse engineer your nurture sequence to actually match that cycle. And then you won't find yourself feeling frustrated when you're not getting that return on investment or things like that. The reason that, again, it's so long and complicated is that there's multiple stakeholders, there's people that make the decision, but maybe they're not using the product. Maybe there's someone else within their company, or in my case, in their school district, that is going to be using the product. And then, of course, they have competing priorities. Everyone does these days. The attention is lower and lower and lower. And as we mentioned earlier, with a nurture sequence, you might see people joining, being really engaged, and then all of a sudden not engaging at all, and they've disappeared. But the caveat here to remember is that they are still out there and they're just not ready yet. So what do most nurture sequences get wrong? We've all seen those emails that default with the first name, and it's really rough when you see that those brackets and your name isn't even showing up. But that's typically like the most personalization sometimes we will see. Again, pushing for those meetings and call to actions too early. I always say, like, you can put that meeting link in your signature. I don't think having that there at the end is a bad thing. I think it's okay to do that, but I think in the body of an email nurture sequence, especially for those first couple of emails that you're sending, you definitely don't want to ask for that meeting straight away. And then also forgetting to deliver value. I think sometimes in B2B, when you're really close to the product, you get blind spots essentially, and you forget that beginner's mindset, that Shoshin mindset. When you are, first starting out, there is a lot of power and understanding in being a beginner and being at the start of a nurture sequence. And I think it's important to always have that perspective of what is it, where are they coming from, how are they getting here, and how can we support them? And then a corporate tone that builds zero rapport. In B2B, we often overly jargonate our emails because we think that that's what our target audience wants to hear, and that is just not the case. You want to make sure that you're writing your emails in a middle school reading level, not because your target audience is not capable of reading those high level texts. It's just that email is meant to be correspondence. It's meant to build communication, build trust. And when you're speaking at too high of a level, you can obviously lose meaning. And a lot of, let's face it, when we check our emails, we're not going on to read a novel, I did put here the emoji caveat. I always love to point this out to clients of mine that you want to be careful with those GIFs and emojis, because if you want to get roasted by your 20-year-old niece like I did, I wrote an email sequence for a company that sold college textbooks straight to college students at a cheaper, more cost affordable price. And I was really relying heavily on the emojis, and she told me it was giving fake corporate old people. So I always just like to tell people that little caveat, to just remember that if you're going to try to get yourself away from that robotic piece, that you want to also be just as equally wary of the emoji and GIF situation. So let's get into the meaning of nurture, because I think sometimes we forget, and I used to be an English teacher, and so I think it's important to remember that the whole goal of nurturing a new lead, a prospect, and getting them to become a buyer is to encourage growth and create conditions to mature. So you want to make sure that you're coming across as helpful, that you are going to support them, that if they needed you, they could email you and someone would get back to them right away. We're creating conditions for them to believe us and to build that trust. So we often think about a nurture sequence, and this, I'm not saying that this is bad or good. I'm not trying to attach negative connotations onto things, but we often think in a cadence, right? We want to automate our nurture sequences. And so we always want to figure out like how many days should we be sending email number 3? But what a really good nurture, if we think back to that definition, is to build those conditions, build trust, and to encourage something to mature. So we need to really take a step back and think about, how did they appear? Where did they come from? What did they do? What action triggered this? And what do they need to feel confident right now at this very, very moment? So let's think about this. In my industry in ed tech, webinars are a huge selling point. And also it's just to build really good trust and rapport, to let people see the product, see it in action, maybe hear from happy customers, having a panel. Let's just think about a trigger here. So somebody signs up for a webinar and they attend it. That's fantastic. Maybe in that webinar, they not only attended, but they were taking notes, and they stuck around for the Q&A and asking questions. This person is highly engaged, highly interested. Then we have, obviously, we've all been there, the no-shows, the people who register for that very same webinar and they don't show up at all. And then we might have someone who doesn't show up, or maybe they did and they rewatched the recording. We have all these different actions that happen, and we would nurture these people differently, right? So if someone's attending, we would probably want to follow up with them with something a little bit deeper to go and explore from based upon the webinar. But for the no-shows, we'd likely send, the recording with some highlights, like try to captivate them and create some type of open loop to get them to watch the recording. You want to kind of tease it out a bit. So for a lot of times, what I see with webinar nurture flows is it's always the same one, but there's different things that are happening despite it being the same trigger. So we always want to make sure that we're thinking back to, okay, they had this action, but now there's several actions beneath that are going to happen. It's not all the same, and we shouldn't treat these people the same way. Same thing with like a free trial sign up. You might have someone who activated the product and then they started using it a lot, or you might have someone who signed up for free trial that they never used it. You wouldn't handle these people the same way. That you want to create those conditions to build trust. So, which leads me to, let's turn our customer stories into emails so that people can trust you. So customer stories work in nurture because they speak to specific pain points, objections, outcomes, frequently asked questions. You can attach a customer story that you've interacted with when they become a buyer, and you can create emails based upon what was the pain point that they were having. Instead of providing a generic pain point, you can actually show the proof. Again, I go back to my English teacher days. I used to write all the time for my students' essays. I'd say, show me, don't tell me, give me proof. Where's the claim? How do we know this? So these customer stories work beautifully in a nurture sequence, and they help buyers see themselves, especially if you have a similar profile, you can share a similar customer story of that profile, and it just builds trust faster because, I kind of liken it to word of mouth marketing, essentially. Like your customer stories, your success stories are so amazing for nurturing new leads and prospects for yourself. So I wanted to kind of flip something on its head a little bit. We often hear you should save your social proof and case studies for email 4 or 5 after you've warmed them up. And I disagree. I think it's never too early to share about happy customers. I think matching, maybe someone had a pain point and you are saying, so you could just narrow it down to that power of one. Instead of being like, you feel XYZ, you could say so-and-so felt They were frustrated by the lack of time that they had. Whatever the pain point is that your product is solving, you can attach it early on. It doesn't have to wait until later on in your nurture sequence. So I always think about this when I'm creating my nurture sequence. You want to figure out your target audience's pain and then their adjacent pain points. So like what would happen next if they solved that mini problem? So you keep going from that major pain point that a lead would have at the very beginning that they're trying to solve, and kind of break it down into chunks via email. And you want to show the proof, show them how someone like them had that same problem and solved it, because then you're giving them that possibility. So you want pain, proof, possibility. You're helping those prospects understand and imagine the product working for them as well. So you might be asking this question now: how do I even get customer stories? And case studies are obviously the most formal way, where you show like you show the background, the pain point they were trying to solve, why they chose whatever product it is, and then the outcomes of that. And case studies are amazing, and if you have them, that's fantastic. But your customer stories are really they're hiding and in plain sight. And so if you have a customer success manager, you should be speaking to them and asking them if there's been any conversations happening. You could turn that into a case study. You don't always have to request someone's time, because it is a time commitment to sit down with a customer for 30 to 45 minutes and asking them about their experience with the product. You can actually reverse engineer it and use your success managers or someone who's speaking to customers, your sales reps. Those calls are really helpful too. And just making sure that they're listening in for, are they experiencing a problem? What's something really great that's happened based upon using the product or the platform or whatever it is? Those sales calls and demos, onboarding conversations. You can actually look in your webinar chats and the questions that people are asking. Implementation emails, social media groups. I mean, you can find maybe on LinkedIn, maybe someone's talking about your product that you didn't even know about, or on like Instagram or Facebook or Reddit. You can scour those groups and find that people are talking about it, take a screen grab of it and put it into your nurture sequences. There's so many places that you have customer stories that you can mine for. So here is a simple nurture flow. And again, 3 emails is not going to cut it in our long sales cycles, but I always like to think of it like you can spiral these things over and over and over again to build the nurture. So you can create a thought-provoking insight with a customer story, give them a guide that, maybe a customer story used that particular guide. I always love to add podcasts to my nurture sequences, because podcasts, a lot of people listen to them on their way to work or maybe on their lunch break or driving home, whatever the case may be. And it's like adjacent to your product. So you're not all about me, or addressing common objections with proof. So this is a way that you can kind of give those customer stories. And again, like I said, with spiraling them, you can insert from a sales call or your customer success managers. You could insert a customer quote in that email that talks about a pain point they've experienced. You can link to a quick case study or testimonial that is showcasing objections that are common with your product. Email 3 and on, you can show like a full transformation of a before and an after. So you can always go back, and again, those 3 P's, you want to show the pain points, agitate them in small little chunks with customer stories. That's your proof. And then that shows that possibility. So again, just so that we're in our emails, you want to have, obviously, whatever the pain point is that's happening within your customer's journey. maybe they are unaware that your product can help them. Maybe they are aware, but they're hesitant. You can tie all of your customer stories to that journey where you're problem aware. Maybe you are starting to become more aware. Maybe now you are a little bit more invested. You feel like, oh, this product could help me. And then you have a customer story that showcases that where that person is within that journey. You give them the outcome, like the implementation of the product within someone's company. You can talk about that journey. So you can always give a soft tie-in at the end, like if you see yourself in so-and-so's story, please tell me, reply to this email, we can chat, all of that. So here are some story techniques to really ease your buyer worries. And I want us to always think about those common objections, obviously, is time, like money. Cost is always going to be an objection. And implementing something, right? If you're in a company, you're selling to a company, that implementation is another big worry. Like, if I get this, is this product actually going to work? Am I going to look stupid if I get this, if I spend all of this money and then it doesn't work? You know, you want to try to use those customer stories to ease those common worries that your leads would have. So again, like if someone's saying, oh, this is too expensive, you can give a story of ROI or a payback period. You know, for my industry in ed tech, I have a company or a client that I work with that does literacy, like science of reading literacy, and we show the student growth. We have evidence that there is actual student growth from when they start using the product to the very end. I think they had a 35-40% within a 2-month period of growth within students' phonics. So we use that story to show, hey, like in a very short amount of time, you are starting to see signals of growth here. And so you can use those customer stories to build that, ease those worries that your prospects have. Again, not sure if it's going to work for us. Everyone has an ego and they don't want to be the one to make a costly mistake, right? So we want to ease that concern that prospects have. So share stories of a similar customer that was asking hard questions during demos, and then you got them and they were really, those questions that they were asking, that is showing their concern, and you can talk about that within your nurture sequence. Bad timing, that's always another one, especially in my industry with ed tech. There's a finite window of time when school districts are buying, and so it's usually around March to April or May that our customers in ed tech are buying in school districts, but they're making decisions before that. They're planning to spend money months before. So we have to always think about our sales cycle and how you can nurture with those customer stories frequently and often to show up and show them the stories of customers who waited and then acted. You have customer stories for every kind of question that your prospect has. There's stories that, for those objections, you just want to handle them all with proof. It builds such great trust, especially in our B2B industry. So my thing is, when in doubt, case study it. Case studies are your ultimate nurture tool. They answer objections without making an ask. You are literally showing your prospects, like, this is real, this worked, there's efficacy here, there's evidence, without you saying like, hey, look at me, this product works, we're great. You can actually put the spotlight on your happy customers and get those prospects trusting you faster and getting that trust currency within your emails. Let's see. So just some little additions here. I think we in 2026 are talking about that humanness with the age of AI. And I don't think I could speak today without talking about that. You could reply to original threads. You don't have to start new emails because that looks very like it looks like a human here. You can gingerly add those personality pieces like GIFs, emojis. Images are great when it's appropriate and with caution. Again, going back to the fake corporate old people comment, I always am thinking about that now as I'm writing my email sequences and nurture sequences. Use questions to invite those replies instead of just clicks. I mean, replying in a nurture sequence is fantastic. And not only that, it's great for deliverability, it's your sender reputation. So if you can invite those replies in your nurture flow, I say do it. It's fantastic. It builds rapport. Just make sure that somebody is monitoring that. And then obviously, providing value. I know we say this word value all the time. And I always am like, well, what does value mean here? Just to give you an example, like I always think, I said this before, but thinking about your target audience. I had another client who was targeting elementary school building principals. And I was thinking about their day to day, and they have monthly faculty meetings, right? They have to prepare and plan every month talking points. They have to get information from their superiors to then deliver it to their staff members within their building. But they also want to talk about things that are happening within the school. And, you know, in the States, the science of reading is a big thing. So we planned out like a faculty meeting presentation that they could share, or with a video that they could show their staff with discussion points that they could have. Like it was a quick 3-minute video that they could share in their staff meeting and then have their staff discuss. And it had nothing to do with the product, but it had everything to build rapport and that trust. So just always thinking about that problem adjacent situation and not focusing so much on yourself, but focusing on them and how you can really help provide that value. So again, common nurture mistakes to avoid: asking for a meeting in every single email, focusing on yourself instead of them. You want to have a you focus. You and first names are the most powerful, persuasive part of the English language. Ignoring email engagement like signals, opens, clicks, using that stiff corporate language that feels robotic. And then using, I know we're at time, so just making sure you're using your customer stories early and often, not just in email, build that behavior-based nurture path for those different actions. Remember that webinar registration we talked about, that just because somebody is doing the same thing doesn't mean their next action is going to be the same. And you want to nurture that, address those objections with social proof, not pushiness, and make every email feel human, helpful, and personal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. It's good to see those mistakes not to make. This is not just my problem. The B2B emails I get every day, those do not work.
They are all this. Do not do this one.
Yeah. Everything was in the list. But we are also business to business. We are making software for companies, and we also try to find new customers with marketing emails. And one recipe that I found that also seems to work is like you don't say it costs that much, but how much you benefit from it despite
Absolutely.
the cost. Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer, but I see it not too much when we get sent some kind of like B2B emails.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, we always think about, I just took a lovely, wonderful course with Emma Stratton. She wrote a B2B book, Make It Punchy. And that's an excellent read for anyone that's in B2B, especially tech messaging. And I remember her talking about how its features are so easy and concrete to access within a product, but nobody's buying a product for those features. They're buying it for whatever the benefit they're going to receive. And so I like to think about, going into those features and then thinking about, okay, why does that matter for the person? What's it going to give to them? Is it time back? Is it going to make their life better? Is it going to make them look good in their job? Ego is an important thing for everyone. So, I think it's so important to remember the benefits when you're talking about your product, especially in your email nurture sequences.
Mm-hmm. But as a starting cold emailer, what would you suggest me? What would be the most important thing that would give the biggest benefit? The first, maybe 1-2 things. Where to start?
For a cold email?
Yeah. If I want to start to build up this nurture campaign.
So for cold emails, I would say number one, it has to be 70 words or less. Like it has to be the shortest email possible. It has to be, every line has to earn its place, and it has to be you focused. That's like one of my rules when it comes to cold email outreach. It's all about them, not yourself. And again, it's thinking back to that pain point, that pain point that your product is solving, but you want to just give them something like pain point adjacent, like something small that they can solve quickly. So like I said before, like if I was emailing like a principal and it was the faculty meeting, I would say like, you have to plan your faculty meetings every month. Here is a short video on a science of reading, piece that you can use within your discussions. And here's 3 follow-up questions that you can have, and like a little cheat sheet for you. Something like you're trying to think about their day-to-day and the problems and fires that they're putting out, and how can you really help them? What's something small that you can offer them that's actually going to be valuable in solving like a mini problem that they have to deal with all the time.
And if you have set up this life cycle email series, do you measure the impact of your work also? How well does every this block work? How do you deal with like complaints or like list cleanup? And this is also what you consider all the time, that when you build something, probably how do you measure impact?
How do I measure impact of a nurture sequence or like cold outreach? Okay. So for a nurture, so
sorry.
we want to see positive signals. So like, I think we often put a focus on like, oh, this open rate, or oh, this click-through rate was so great, or this one was too low. And I think what you have to kind of pull back a little bit and look at the bigger picture and look for signals at average over a period of time, which is unfortunate because I think we all want to like go in and find whatever the one email is that's working, and then whatever one email that's not working. But I think you have to step back and look at the big picture and see like, are you building towards small momentum? Because in our industry, it's slow. And so you want to see like over a span of time, are your open rates rising? Are your click-through rates rising within like, I would even look at it incrementally, like a 3-month period, a 6-month period, a 9-month period, and analyze your history within your ESP, and then look at the average of everything, and then go in and like, then you look at, okay, so within a 3-month, 6-month, 9-month period, or however long your cycle is, you want to see like, that are you creating tiny wins? Like, are you creating small momentum? And if you see a drop off, then become curious and investigative and figure out why that is, and go in and look at each email. But I think at the start of it, you have to like see the sequence as a whole and the journey as a whole.
Yeah. Okay. So the timeline is like really long, as you said, up to a year. So
Yeah.
getting like those small yes answers with every step. Okay, I opened the email. This is the first yes, and
Yes.
it's already leads to another step, and the slow yes. The ultimate
Yes.
goal is to get
Yeah, it's like those
Yeah.
little
Done.
Yeah, till
micro,
done.
it's micro wins. Like, as I
Yeah.
know, because one closing one company or one deal can be like a make or break situation. So we want to see those tiny little wins, because otherwise in B2B it's just not B2C. Like, you're not gonna have this like urgency day and get all these people buying something and whipping out the company credit card just to pay for something quickly. It's just not the case. So I think when it comes to those nurture sequences, you have to look at the big picture with the micro yeses.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank
you very
you.
much, Kelly. Thank you for your time and
Thank
for
you
your
so much.
contribution.
Thank you. I
Uh,
appreciate it.